We are almost at the very end of our trimester, too. That's the other scary part. Okay, so with your eyeballs on WebEx, we are still looking at our cultures and conflicts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think really quickly of these three questions, and then I want you to raise your hand and I want you to answer them in the WebEx, okay? I turned off the chat for now. I want you to think about who is someone you look up to as a leader and why do you think of them as a leader? And then so maybe it could be somebody, maybe in your family, maybe it's somebody in your school, maybe it is somebody in your city, maybe it's somebody in your state, maybe it's somebody in the United States, or maybe it's somebody in the world or history. Okay, so if you notice, I started small and I want you to think big. Okay, so there might be somebody specific that you look up to as a leader and why. And then I want you to, in a little bit, we're going to then list some different types of leaders. And then we're going to look at the leaders in the novel. So let's talk about number one first. Raise your hand, please. Who is somebody that you look up to as a leader? And I want you to tell me why. Harper.
My mom, well, my parents, because they teach me like what's right and what's wrong.
Ooh, thank you for sharing. Brielle or Breezy. Mhm.
So also my parents, especially my dad, because he teaches me a lot about the Bible, and so does my mom, but me and my dad talk about it a lot, and I also look up to God because without him we wouldn't even be here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Ellie, who do you look up to as a leader?
My parents and my great grandma, because she's taught me a lot about never like giving up, even though when times are hard, you still shouldn't give up.
Oh, very nice. Thank you for sharing. Riley, who's someone that you look up to?
Look up to a lot of people, but mostly my parents, also my big sister Elsie. But my grandma is also very wise. Like Brielle said, God also I look up to him. Yeah, so.
Hey, thank you for sharing. Iris, do you have somebody that you look up to as a leader?
Yes, I look up to Kamala Harris because she's a very strong woman of color voice in our history.
Okay, thank you.
Futures.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Berkeley, who's somebody that you look up to?
I look up to my grandma, and I don't know how to say this because I used to look up to my great grandma, but she died.
Okay, you can still look up to her. Yep, even though she's passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I also looked up to my aunt Heidi, because she knows Spanish and she helps me practice.
Thank you.
And also my
I'm sorry. I know I'm trying not. I think Iris and Berkeley. Did you guys have anything else? I might have cut you off. Anything else? Okay. Does anybody else have someone specific that they look up to as a leader? Okay, so looking at number two, some of you guys actually listed a very wide range of leaders. Some of you guys, I heard a lot with your parents and your family members, whether they passed on. Yeah, it doesn't say that they have to be alive. It could be somebody who's passed on. And then I heard somebody who is currently in a government position that we can look up, Miss Kamala Harris. I heard her. I know in school we've talked about different types of leaders, like Martin Luther King as a leader, or our founding fathers, even as different types of leaders. I guess it depends on specifically what you're trying to learn from them. Some of you guys mentioned with your family members, you learn how to, I'm trying to think. You learn about how to learn Spanish, or how to learn about your religion, or how to learn how to be a good person, or maybe how to be a leader of some sort. Are there other types of leaders that maybe we didn't list that people might include? Like example, I said somebody in a government position like Kamala Harris or Martin Luther King. What are some more?
Teddy Roosevelt or George Washington.
Ah,
Or
yes.
like all girl activists in like Pakistan, especially like Malala Yousafzai, for speaking up for the right of education.
Yeah. Berkeley, I see your hand up.
Like Riley said, like the people, when there was war, those people, some people can, I don't know what the word is, but they like considered them leaders because they kind of led their troops into battle or something like that. Like in the Broadway musical Hamilton, George Washington is kind of like the leader of the thingy.
Okay. Riley.
My great grandpa, Hank, he was in the war, and I look up to him because he saved his friend in the war, World War II.
Breezy.
My great grandpa also was in the war and he survived the Lexington, and I look up to him because he survived, and he said that he always would put his life in front of others. And I also look up to my great grandma because she traveled across the ocean, and she meant a lot to me.
Okay. Sienna.
My grandpa Gene, because he was in the army.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, so awesome. Thank you guys. That was you. Thank you. A lot of you guys were able to expand on those different types of leaders. You could even think about more specifically of things that you have interests in. So maybe you have somebody who's a leader with some of your interests, like a musical interest, or somebody who's who writes books. I know some of you guys talked about like Malala, who ended up sharing their experiences through books. Other people, they share them through maybe speeches, or we are able to see them through the lens of others. In this book, who would you consider is a leader?
Well, Sound of Running Feet is a leader to all like the girls. She looks like the leader, and also Chief Joseph because he's the leader of the whole tribe.
Okay, so one of them, if you think about it, is kind of elected a leader, and one of them is maybe selected a leader. Riley or Iris, yeah.
General Howard, because like a general is kind of like a big leader spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say he's a leader for the right thing.
Okay, so that's a good point. Is that leaders may be leaders to certain types of people, but maybe not for others, depending on their choices. Riley or Berkeley, would you have something to add to that on the leader?
Yes.
I have a different.
So I think Sound of Running Feet is the leader, and also Chief Joseph, and also Howard. But there can to those I forget his name, but it was another character. Yeah, he was like a leader of a different tribe. Like there's different leaders of different tribes.
Mm-hmm.
They followed their leader, not the leaders of another tribe.
Okay.
I think Tohosute was the leader of the Redcoats because it says in the book. I think it says that in the book.
So let's see. I think Tahulahul Sote, he was one that at the very end she said, A lot of people, they would say that Tulahulahu Sote had stood up to the general. Every word he said would be said again. The young warriors would listen to my father, for they loved him, but they would not obey him. They would never leave Walawa. They would follow Tulahulahu Sote to death if that is where he led them. So, he looks like with the younger generation, Tulahulahu Sote is more of a leader in their aspect with some of their beliefs. So I think that's what you're kind of talking about, because the redcoats, they were against the or the red jackets. Yeah, they were against the whites. And you're right, there might be leaders with those too. Is there something I'm missing, Berkeley, or do you want to add anything onto that?
Nope, that's basically what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay, because I think let's see, who was the one? Maybe no, Swan Necklace. Was it Swan Necklace? Nope, he was cousin. Wallitus was the leader of the Redcoats. Ooh, so he was some sort of a leader, but maybe he wasn't a leader to everyone. That kind of brings us back to, the general. He was a type of leader. Old Joseph was a type of leader, but not everybody's same leader. Something to think about. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do today is we're going to actually do more of an observant day. I don't think we're reading anything. And we are going to look at some portraits. And we're going to look, it's a type of visual art. So it's a type of art specifically for a person. Okay, so let's write this in our journal. So I'm going to write in my vocabulary journal. You can do a doble pantalla, a split screen. And we've got the word portrait. And specifically, so what words you should already have is you should have conflict, moons, suns, prosperity, reservation, treaty. We haven't written anything in a while. This should actually be on a new page, and this is module 1, and
We can only see the screen that says portrait.
Yep. I'm looking at my journal, and so I'm just saying it out loud. So I'm going to write in mine. I'm actually starting it on a new page because my other page is full. And I'm going to write portrait. And it means an artistic representation of a person. So it's a piece of artwork. And I'll show you my journal here in a second. But you can write in your journal. Ooh, I do not want it that big. And artistic.
We can't see your vocabulary thing. We only can see the portrait.
Yep, well, that's the word, and then that's the meaning, right? That's all I'm looking at, too. I'm going to put, as a synonym, a selfie. Because it could kind of be like a selfie, but it's usually more artistic. So I wrote what was on the thing. So I said, picture done by paint of a person. Or a selfie. To be in modern terms. So, I'm going to ask you guys as you're filling this out, why do you think somebody might paint a portrait of somebody? Why might you paint an actual portrait? So why?
To remember them.
Ooh, to remember them by Riley.
To remember them by their face, and then you can actually see them and picture how they looked, and then it's easier to possibly know more things about your or about someone, because like maybe they're wearing a army shirt or something, and then you'll know that they're in the army.
Very interesting. Think about why would they make a portrait of somebody in the past compared to making a portrait of somebody nowadays? Why would they paint a portrait of somebody in the past, or why would that be different than painting a portrait of somebody nowadays?
Because sometimes in the past, like, or at some point, there wasn't photos. So if you want to know how the people in the past looked like,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to look at portraits.
Okay. Does anybody else? Why would you paint a portrait of somebody nowadays then, if we can take a picture of them? Why go through all that trouble? Why do we have portraits of Barack Obama and
To remember
so
the
that they
important
can
people.
be in museums.
to be in museums? What was the other thing? I heard somebody else.
Maybe it's a representation of power.
Ooh.
Of like important people, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of, I would say maybe power, or it could be the respect of somebody. Do you think so if you're gonna have somebody paint you, would you have some random person off the street? Ooh, sometimes they do have those caricatures.
You would have an artist usually.
An artist? Or do you want that person to kind of know what you look like and know you a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I've got a beautiful beauty mark, even though I may not want it, I mean, usually your portraits, you want them to be as close as possible, right? Okay. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to look at a portrait of Joseph. Before we do that, I want us to see if we can paint a picture of what he looks like in our mind, because I haven't even looked at the picture yet. So let's turn in our book, so find your book, and let's turn to page 7. Somebody raised their hand. Riley, what's your question?
I do have an inference of what he might look like, because
Okay,
I don't know if they had.
I was going to say, hang on to that inference just for a moment, okay? Because I want everybody to kind of create their own in a minute. So, really quickly, here's our questions, our focus for the next couple days. Remember, we're talking about how do cultural beliefs and values guide people. We're looking more at what important beliefs and values guide Chief Joseph and his daughter, son of running feet. So we talked about those leaders. And we're going to look now today, what is an exploration of portraits? How does that maybe help us think about leadership? Okay, so we're going to turn to page 7. And I want to look at this part where it's right in the middle. It's the about 4th paragraph. It says, Joseph, my father, son of old Joseph. Okay? And as we're reading it, I want you to identify some of these leadership qualities that, this is, remember, Sound of Running Feet, she is describing her father. And if you remember, I think it was Harper that was reading this. We actually stopped and we looked at this in detail. What does this mean? So let's see if we can identify some of these leadership qualities and try to paint a picture of what he might look like in our head. Okay, then we're going to look at the portrait and see if her description matches the portrait. Okay, so page 7, we're kind of right in the middle, that big paragraph. It says, Joseph, my father, son of old Joseph, was an honored chieftain of the Nimipu. He was their chieftain because he could see far away into the land of the suns and moons that had not yet risen. At the snowflakes before they fell, the small green worm deep in the ruddy apple, the thought before it was spoken. He was kind, gentle man, for me too kind with the whites. He was not a warrior. Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, in this, again, let's reiterate or rediscuss. What are some leadership qualities that Joseph has?
He is gentle and kind with like everyone, even the whites.
Ooh, okay. Anybody else?
He is brave and bold to stand up to the whites and speak the truth.
Okay.
He is loving.
What else? Remember we talked about he could see far away into the land of the sun and moons that have not yet risen. So he's kind of seeing the future. What would another word kind of
He
be?
could like predict the future.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, we can kind of predict what's going to happen too, right? With like, if you think about like, we can predict how our report card's going to be because of what we've experienced, right? So if I know I've been doing all of my work, chances are my future report card's going to be looking pretty good. But if I haven't done any work, I can predict that it may not be so well. So he uses his experiences, right? Let's see. Do you remember what we talked about that sentence? The small green worm deep in the ruddy apple. You remember what we said about that? What do you think that means?
What did you say again?
So the sentence, the small green worm deep in the ruddy apple. What do you think that means again?
Like, even if he couldn't see it, he could still like kind of feel or kind of think that's in there. Like, because you can make an inference if there's a hole in an apple that's about the size of a worm. Maybe there's a worm in it, so like you wouldn't want to take a bite of that one. You would want one without holes. So like maybe she's saying he can kind of use his knowledge for telling the future.
Oh, very good inference. Yeah.
Yes, like what he has experienced or what he has learned from all of those years will help him tell what's going to happen, or maybe like something really important like the apple. Like he learned that maybe he did when he was younger take a bite of an apple with a hole in it, and then he learned that there was a worm.
Ooh, he learned from his experiences, huh? What about the thought before it's spoken? Would you say that he's somebody to jump to actions right away, or do you think he maybe thinks about?
He thinks about his words, I'm guessing, before he actually like says them.
Ooh.
Or like his actions.
Yeah, yep.
Thinks before he does, and that's like the best way to do it, because if you just go into it, you might do something wrong or something like that.
Or you might say something
like he's prepared. Like the coyote, he was like really prepared in the story, and he was ready. And then when the beaver had like this plan that he just kind of did it. He didn't really like think about and prepare for it.
Oh, great.
He just comes up with a plan before taking action.
That was a really nice connection, Harper.
That was a great connection, Harper. Yeah, I think of it as my dad. My dad, when I used to ask him questions when he was little, I'm somebody that I'll speak right away. And my dad would always go, and he would sigh. And I could tell that he was thinking about what he was saying before he said it. And I really appreciate that actually as an adult now. And it was something that I always noticed. So, very, very nice connection. Okay, so here is Chief Joseph.
Could I say my inference that I had?
Yeah, go ahead, Riley.
My inference was that he was gonna have long hair, because I was thinking they didn't have scissors back then, or like to cut their hair. Like nowadays, that's what boys do.
It's true. If you notice in a lot of portraits, actually, and actually one of my students, we are talking about it right now in 6th grade, the traditional Dakota and the modern Dakota, or the farming Dakota, they used to keep their hair long because it was very cultural. It actually showed strength the longer your hair went. So they would often leave their hair nice and long. Yes, Harper.
I actually remember it's like on our cover. That's the picture that's on our cover
Mm-hmm. It is.
of our book, and I remember reading the back of the cover, or like the back, and it said that that's Chief Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew, but I didn't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so you guys, I want you to think about those leadership qualities. Does he look like he could fit some of those? Which ones do you think fits
To
with
me,
her idea? Yeah.
he looks like he could actually be like really fierce.
Mm,
Like the way he's like his face looks, how he is, but then you can also kind of see the gentleness in him.
yeah, he has very gentle curves to his face, doesn't he? But like you said,
Yeah.
he looks
Yeah.
super.
He seems he could be very brave, but also very kind and loving.
Yeah.
Like most leaders, they want to show like maybe how strong they are and how like brave and bold and like they can fight with their weapons. Instead of weapons, he fights with his words. He doesn't like violence.
Mm. Yeah, so he uses his words for power, right? Mm.
Yeah, it said in the book that he said that there would be no violence. He'd just go to the reservation.
Yeah. What other leadership qualities do you see in this? Now, because we read about the ideas, but what do you see?
His hair is long.
Yeah, his hair's long. Look at his eyes. That's what I really.
It looks like
He has
he's
a lot
wearing
of
very like
markings.
traditional clothes
Yep. He's got very
Yeah,
that I he can
noticed
show.
that there's paint on his forehead.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
wonder
it's on him.
what those dots mean. Like, is there, because I see like lots of leaders or like that in the Native Americans have like paint on their foreheads, but I've never seen one with just dots, and so I wonder what that means.
Mm.
I also notice that there's a feather, and I'm wondering if like it's from like a bald eagle, and if that means something like important to their tribe or that bird.
Okay. Matthias wrote the eyebrows are in perfect position to look gentle and fierce at the same time. Sorry, go ahead. Let's see, Bailey, you raised your hand.
I think like I wonder if the different paint on their foreheads or face mean their tribe.
Yeah. I'm assuming, and this is an inference based off of some other things that I know. It's a cultural thing. Somebody you guys noticed, he's wearing some traditional garb. He's got a feather in his hair. His necklace would be traditional, the way he does his hair, and some of the paint. I'm not sure if it is a traditional ceremonial for something that maybe just the leader wears, or maybe if, because I know they have warrior paint, but since this is a portrait, I'm assuming it's not a picture of him going off to war. It's probably more of the traditional thing that a leader would wear. What else? Let's see. We said, what are some more words that Sound of Running Feet says? She says, he was a kind, gentle man. Let's see. Did somebody else just raise their hand? Iris?
I have wonder.
Yes.
Quick. I wonder if like leaders wear lots of colors, and like the people in the village just wear a normal color.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that his clothes are like usually that brownish, lightish color is made from leather, and that's sort of that traditional clothing.
Yeah,
I think it's actually hides, like the buffalo hides.
Probably the deer, buffalo hides. I would assume that as well. I know historically, the color thing is very interesting because historically, kings and queens, because the color purple was so rare, only kings and queens and high leaders, like in Europe, would wear purple. So that's why in a lot of portraits of old historical kings and queens, they're wearing a lot of purple because it was so rare, and a lot of those people that they would have their colors dyed that. I'm not sure about over here, though. I don't know what colors were available to him. Usually dye comes from different plants around. Matthias said the longer he stares at him, the more gentle he seems. So that's interesting. I would agree.
And I know that a lot of like Nez Perce wear earrings. So I think that's just a traditional thing because like a lot of Native Americans that I've seen, like the Ojibwe tribe, they all wear the earrings too.
Some other things that I just kind of notice based off of, because my mother works outside a lot. She does a lot of gardening. And she has a very weathered face, kind of like he does from being outside. And it's very bronze, like his. So that makes me think that he's seen many summers or many suns, is I guess what they would say, or many seasons, many summers. And he seems, because he looks older, that he probably would be a little bit wiser. He has a lot of experiences, is kind of what I would see.
Because like they always say, like the older, the wiser, and like the Native American, it's always like the old like people that are the wise people and tell all the kids stories. Like in the beaver, they said in that story how the beaver stole fire from the pines, that the like grandmas would tell their children, and this is where the pine tree still stands.
Yeah. How would you describe his expression then, you guys? We talked about what we saw, what he's wearing. How would you describe his expression since we're kind of looking at his face? He's starting to look grumpy. Fierce. Grumpy. Would you say he's shy?
I can tell he doesn't look very happy. He looks more just like ready to do it.
Is he smiling? Does he look like he's trying to?
He's got like he has like this straight face, like he's preparing for something.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, like when I look at it more, it looks like kind of like the Mona Lisa, how it's like a little bit of a smile, but technically not a smile.
And
now I see that.
Now you see it? And I always wonder, because portraits, like with pictures and stuff, you can smile, right? And it's really quickly. But imagine, and this is, and I don't, maybe this is just him, but I always think with a portrait too, you're not going to want to smile or frown a lot because you're going to have to hold that smile, right? For a lot of time. Ooh, somebody said that he looks like he's interested in something or thinking hard. I could see that too. What about behind him? The background.
It looks like he could have been like in a teepee because it looks like it could be like a hide of some sort. It's kind of that color.
Okay. Anything else about the background? Is there a lot going on in the background?
No.
Oh.
I think they don't have a lot going on in the background because it's supposed to focus on the person in the photo.
Oh,
I agree.
That's a pretty good guess. Are there any other wonders about this picture? We did a lot of.
Why? I wonder if the feather represents if they've maybe hunted before, because like feathers of a bird or something like that.
Okay.
The feather represents strength because you have to be strong and smart to be able to hunt down a bird.
Okay. Any other wonders, you guys, when you look at them? Wonder, do you think maybe he's thinking of something? I mean, he had to sit here and have somebody paint him. Hmm. Let's see, some other questions say that my book is asking me to ask you is, how does this artist show his emotions or character? And we did talk about this a little bit. He did really do well. It looks very real, you're right. So they painted him. Some of you guys said he kind of looks grumpy. So, what do you think him staring straight at the author? What do you think that kind of shows? He does have a very loud presence. I agree with you, Matthias. He has a very imposing or very strong character. She's staring straight ahead. He's very concentrated. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Does he look confident or like he's scared? Oh.
I think that a lot of portraits have people with a straight face because they want to seem confident in the photos or portraits.
Yeah. Yeah, I would probably be annoyed if I had to sit there for a long time too. But again, that's how you would get portraits. And it was an honor actually to get a portrait. Because remember, think about again who you said we would do portraits of. We would do people that we respected or people that we wanted to remember. So it was probably an honor to, yes, you had to sit here for a while, but it was an honor to have somebody paint you, right? Okay, now what we're going to do, and I'm going to have you, oh, I have it on the next page. Yes. So I want you, on the next page, I'm going to have you take a screenshot of it because I'm going to put you in groups or small groups. And these next two pictures is of White Cloud and George Washington. And here, I'll show you. So this is White Cloud, head of the Iowans. Okay, so yes, this is the guy on the very front of our cover.
Also that.
Yep. And George Washington. So White Cloud is the head chief of the Iowa tribe. The other guy is George Washington, the first president of the United States of America. The Iowa are a Native American tribe like the Nez Perce who faced similar conflicts with the U.S. government. So they had those problems with the westward expansion. So Lewis and Clark traded with the Iowas during their exploration. So this is actually more closer to Minnesota, so south of us. And then we have George Washington, who was the first leader of the Americas, okay? And I just want you to, the last little bit here, talk in your group. Actually, I want everybody to take a screenshot. That way you can see this. Take a screenshot. And I'm going to put you in groups and I want you to talk about these two people. So we really looked into detail about Chief Joseph. I want you to tell me now, is there something similar in how they're painted or something different, or is there some notices or wonders that you guys have too? Okay, so I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and I just want you to discuss this a little bit. I got to grab my breakout rooms here. Select all, and we're going to have you go into 5 or 6 groups. Okay, so did you get a screenshot of this? Aylin, why'd you leave? And like I said, I want you to now kind of compare and contrast these and tell me some notice and wonder in your group, okay? So here, you can go in your breakout rooms.
just more like colorful and like can't think of the word.
Like more of what the like how the sun hit him or something.
Yeah.
Did somebody have a question here?
No.
Okay. Somebody raised their hand. That's okay.
Can you put me back in the group thing, please?
Oh, yes. Um, ooh. There's not a button that allows you to go?
No, it kicked me out of WebEx.
Oh, weird. Okay, let me see if I can. Herder. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I want to know what you guys talked about. So compare and contrast them. What did you guys notice, wonder? What did you see? Come online. Or raise your hand. Either one. Iris.
The group I was in, we talked about how they were both leaders.
Mm-hmm.
We also talked about how George Washington's background is just black, and White Cloud's background has some white clouds in it, but also it's sky.
Huh. Yeah. You guys, I never usually pay attention to the background, but that is very contrasting, isn't it? Berkeley.
I wonder maybe they're probably not in the same time frame because George Washington lived like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
They could be, but probably not. And how White Cloud, what he's wearing, it kind of maybe looks like a little cloud, kind of, because he's wearing like white feathers on his like shirt thing. And that he painted his face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
White.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing.
In my group, we talked about how White Cloud looks like he's going to like a fancy party, like dancing and all that stuff. But George Washington looks like he's going to like a dinner, a nice dinner, and he's ready to work and all that stuff. Like he's colorful, White Cloud's colorful and George Washington's like black.
Bailey.
Also,
Oh,
My group talked about how what White Cloud looks like he was staring at something, like he was getting ready for war or something.
yeah, their gazes. Iris.
I noticed that White Cloud looks way younger than George Washington.
Yeah, so leaders, as we know, can be any age range, right? Even some of our friends could be looked up as a leader. Aaron.
I noticed by the looks of them, they kind of look like they have different personalities.
You're right. I can see some characteristics that are a little different. I mean, I I always thought that the lines, like when you look at older people, if you look at like smile lines or lines around their eyes, you can tell if somebody is a happy person most of the time or if they're kind of a grumpy person, right? Because yeah, you've got different lines that are usually etched in time. And it's, yeah, like you said, somebody is a little bit older, it might be a little bit easier to see it. Nora, did you have something?
I had something that was also like about their appearance,
Mhm.
and I kind of noticed that White Cloud was wearing more of like a tribal clothing or type of clothing, like with his necklace and the painting on his and the paints on his face and like his hat.
Mhm.
And then I noticed how George Washington was more just like plain.
Yeah. And his clothing, George Washington's clothing, I mean, it's freshly stiffened and starched because they want their collars nice and stiff. And you've got a lot of texture, I notice, with, yeah, White Cloud. So somebody noticed how his outfit looks really fluffy and he's got paint and he's got color. Whereas, yeah, George Washington's, you can even think about how the cultures are different compared to being the founding father and that leader. You gotta look stiff and strong that way by like being, I don't know, very stiff to where having that colors and information and a lot of this is with White Cloud is very, very different. Okay, don't forget these things that we talked about today because tomorrow we are going to look at 17A and we're going to write down some of these things. So we did not get to it today, which I didn't expect that we would. So I have it under tomorrow's lesson, so under Tuesday. If you wanted to write down a couple of things so that you didn't forget it, you are more than welcome to on 17A. Your only homework for tonight is to read for 30 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen? Wonderful. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday and
You
great
too.
discussion today.
Do we have any other work?
Just reading. Just reading is today.
Okay. Bye. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thank you.